In the annals of mythology, heroes rise and fall, often at the whim of the gods. They are pawns in divine games, their fates sealed by prophecy and celestial decree. But what happens when a mortal refuses to be a pawn? What happens when a warrior looks up at the heavens, draws their sword, and says, "No"? Today, we tell the story of a hero who didn't just challenge the gods, but defied them, and emerged victorious. This isn't just a tale of strength, but of unbreakable will. Our story begins not with our hero, but with the pantheon that ruled his world. These were gods of immense power, but also of immense pride, jealousy, and caprice. They demanded absolute obedience, unwavering worship, and elaborate sacrifices. For generations, humanity lived under their shadow, praying for mercy and fearing their wrath. To question the gods was to invite ruin. To defy them was to court annihilation. The land was littered with the stories of kings and champions who dared to question divine authority, only to be turned to stone, cast into endless abysses, or have their families cursed for generations. The message was clear. The gods were absolute. Into this world of divine tyranny was born Kael. He wasn't of royal blood, nor was he blessed with divine parentage like so many other heroes. He was the son of a blacksmith, his hands calloused from the forge, his muscles hardened by swinging a hammer, not a sword. From a young age, Kael saw the injustice of the gods' rule. He saw prayers for rain go unanswered while crops withered, and he saw devout families lose everything to a god's passing temper. He saw fear, not love, in the eyes of the worshippers. The turning point came during the annual Sacrifice of Tears, where the most beautiful and talented youth from his village was to be given to the god of the sun, never to return. This year, the chosen one was Alara, the woman Kael loved. While the village elders preached acceptance of their fate, a fire ignited in Kael's soul. He refused to accept this divine decree. He spent the night before the sacrifice not in prayer, but at his father's forge. He didn't craft a weapon to fight a man. He forged a sword with a singular purpose. He quenched the steel not just in water, but in his own resolve, pouring all his anger, his grief, and his defiance into the blade. He named it Godsbane. The next morning, as the priests led a tearful Alara to the sacrificial altar atop the highest peak, Kael stood in their path. The priests scoffed, calling him a fool, a blasphemer. They warned him that the sun god himself would incinerate him for his insolence. Kael simply raised his sword and said, "Then he can come and try." As the sun reached its zenith, a blinding light descended upon the mountaintop. A figure of pure flame and radiant arrogance materialized. The sun, God. He laughed, a sound like grinding stone at the sight of the mortal who dared interrupt his tribute. He didn't even consider Kael a threat, merely an annoyance to be swatted away. He unleashed a torrent of fire, expecting to turn the blacksmith's son to ash. But Kael stood his ground. He met the divine fire not with magic or prayer, but with sheer, unadulterated human will. His sword, Godsbane, glowed with an inner light, absorbing the celestial heat. The god was taken aback. This had never happened before. No mortal weapon could withstand his power. The battle that ensued was one for the ages. It was a clash of divine power against mortal determination. The god, through solar flares, summoned firestorms and tried to blind Kael with his brilliance. But Kael was relentless. He had grown up next to a forge. Heat was his companion. He used the terrain, his agility, and a lifetime of hard-earned strength to dodge, weave, and press his attack. He wasn't fighting like a soldier, he was fighting like a cornered animal protecting its mate. Every swing of his sword was fueled by his love for Alara and his hatred for the injustice she faced. The god, so used to immediate victory and terrified worship, began to feel something he hadn't felt in millennia. Frustration, and then a sliver of fear. The sun. God, enraged by this mortal's persistence, decided to end it. He gathered all his power. becoming a miniature sun, ready to unleash an explosion that would wipe the entire mountain off the map. He saw Kael not as a warrior, but as a symbol of defiance that had to be erased. But in that blinding light, Kael saw his opening. He saw the core of the god's power, his arrogant, divine heart. With a final, desperate roar, he threw himself forward, plunging Godsbane deep into the god's fiery chest. There was a moment of absolute silence. The blinding light faltered. The god looked down at the mortal blade lodged in his essence, a look of utter disbelief on his face. "How?" he whispered as his form began to dissolve, not into ash, but into fading embers that scattered on the wind. Kael collapsed, exhausted and burned, but alive. He had done the impossible. He had killed a god. The sky, which had been a terrifying burning gold, slowly returned to a peaceful blue. The oppressive heat vanished, replaced by a gentle breeze. Kael had not just saved Alara. He had broken the spell of fear that had held his people captive for centuries. When word of his victory spread, it sent shockwaves through the heavens and the earth. The other gods who had watched in arrogant amusement were now silent. They had witnessed the unthinkable. A mortal, through sheer force of will, had proven that even gods could be challenged. They saw that the power of a human heart, fighting for what it loves, could be a force greater than any divine decree. The aftermath was not what you might expect. The remaining gods did not rain down vengeance upon humanity. Instead, they retreated, their confidence shaken. The age of divine tyranny was over, replaced by an age of human agency. Kael didn't become a king or a new god. He returned to his village, to the forge, and to Alara. He was a hero, not because of a crown, but because he showed everyone that your destiny is not written by the stars or dictated by gods. It is forged in your own heart, with your own hands. Kael's story became a legend, a reminder that the most powerful force in the universe isn't celestial magic or divine might, but the indomitable will of a single person who refuses to bow. So, what can we take away from the legend of Kael and Godsbane? It's a powerful metaphor for our own lives. We all face our own gods, seemingly insurmountable challenges, oppressive systems, or internal voices that tell us we are not enough. Kael teaches us that we don't have to accept the fate we are handed. We have the power to forge our own Godsbane, a symbol of our own will and determination, and stand against the challenges that seek to control us. True strength isn't about the power you're given, but the power you claim for yourself. Thank you so much for joining us on this epic journey today. If you enjoyed this story of defiance and the power of the human spirit, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more tales that challenge the ordinary. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What gods are you facing in your own life? Until next time, keep forging your own path. They say no mortal can raise a blade against the gods and live. For millennia, that was the law of the cosmos, an undisputed truth etched into the very fabric of existence. But once, in an age when thunder ruled the skies and lightning was the language of power, a warrior dared to try. And his name was Kael, the man who defied the heavens themselves. This is the forgotten legend of the warrior who defied the gods and won. Kael was born beneath the imposing shadow of Mount Zephyron, a colossal peak believed to be the earthly throne of the gods. It was a place of both awe and terror. Every year, without fail, cataclysmic storms would descend from its summit, unleashing divine fury upon the lands below. They scourged the fields, leveled homes, and swallowed entire villages in floods of fire and rain. The priests, trembling in their ornate temples, would preach that this was punishment, a necessary penance for humanity's inherent arrogance, our ambition, our very existence. They urged submission, prayer, and sacrifice as the only path to survival. But Kael, even as a boy, never believed in submission. He saw the storms not as divine judgment, but as tyranny. And in his heart, he believed in something far more potent: vengeance. His conviction was forged in tragedy. During the firestorm of the 7th year, a tempest more violent than any before, Kael lost everything: his home, his village, his family, all consumed by the gods' casual wrath. As he stood alone amidst the smoldering ruins, a lone survivor under a sky still crackling with indifferent power, something inside him shattered, and something new, something unbreakable, was born from the pieces. Gripping the hilt of a rusted, half-melted sword he'd pulled from the wreckage, he looked up at the storm-shrouded peak of Mount Zephyron, lightning flashing across his tear-streaked face, and he swore a solemn, terrible oath. His voice, barely a whisper against the wind, carried the weight of a world of pain. "If the gods thirst for blood, they will drink mine last." That oath became his life's purpose. It was a promise that drove him into the wilderness, far from the remnants of civilization. For 7 grueling years, Kael trained. He sought not strength, but mastery. He trained in silence, learning to hear the faintest shift in the wind. He trained in total darkness, learning to navigate the world through sound and touch, his senses sharpened to a razor's edge. He trained through unimaginable pain, pushing his body and mind to their absolute limits, transforming them into instruments of his will. He learned to fight blindfolded, relying on the rhythm of his own heartbeat. He learned to listen to the whispers of an approaching storm, to feel the hum of electricity in the air, and to anticipate the very moment thunder would break. He practiced his strikes until they were faster than a flash of lightning, his movements a blur of deadly precision. He became more than a man. He became a force of nature in his own right, a storm gathering to challenge the heavens. And then, when the cycle turned and the destructive storms returned once more to ravage the land, Kael was ready. While others ran for cover or fell to their knees in prayer, he began his ascent. His destination was the fabled Temple of Storms, a sanctuary of pure energy perched at the summit of Mount Zephyron, the place where the gods watched the world from above. The climb was an ordeal designed to break any mortal. He scaled sheer, frozen cliffs where the wind howled like a banshee, tearing at his worn cloak. His breath came in ragged, icy clouds as he pushed through blizzards that would have frozen a lesser man solid. The air grew thin, his lungs burned, but his resolve never wavered. The priests had always preached that no mortal could reach that sacred height without divine permission. But Kael wasn't asking for permission. He brought his defiance with him, a passport forged in suffering and rage. As he reached the summit, a pair of massive, shimmering gates of pure light materialized before him, barring the way. They pulsed with celestial energy, a final warning to turn back. But Kael did not hesitate. He walked forward, and the gates of heaven itself opened to his unwavering will, bathing him in a blinding white light. He stepped inside. The interior of the temple was a void of swirling light and impossible geometry. From the chaos, 3 colossal figures of divine energy took shape, their forms shifting like heat haze. They were the council of this realm. Oron, the goddess of thunder, her voice the crackle of a coming storm. Vakar, the god of war, his presence a crushing weight, and Sarai, the goddess of fate, her eyes holding the threads of past, present, and future. Oron's voice boomed, shaking the very foundation of the temple. "Mortal, how dare you tread on this sacred ground? Your kind belongs in the dirt, worshipping, not intruding." Kael stood firm, his voice calm and steady, a stark contrast to the divine fury surrounding him. "I came for justice," he replied, his gaze unflinching. "You call my presence defiance. I call it balance. For too long, you have taken without consequence. Today, that ends." The gods laughed. It was a sound that was not born of mirth, but of pure, ancient arrogance. A sound like mountains grinding together. To them, this solitary, insignificant mortal was no more than a speck of dust, an amusing anomaly in their eternal existence. They had seen empires rise and fall, stars born and die. What was one man against infinity? But then Kael raised his sword. Not against them, not yet. He raised it toward the celestial dome of the temple against the sky itself. And as he did, the rusted blade he carried transformed. Forged anew in his own unwavering will and the ambient energy of the temple, it blazed with captured lightning, a sword made of pure stormlight. He swung it once, a clean, powerful arc. There was a sound like the sky itself cracking, and the clouds that formed the temple's ceiling shattered, revealing the cold, dark void beyond. And for the first time in an eternity of unchallenged rule, the gods felt a sensation they had long forgotten. They felt fear. The battle raged for 3 days and 3 nights. It was a conflict not of flesh and steel, but of will against divinity. Oron's lightning, which could level mountains, rained down upon Kael, but he moved between the bolts as if he were part of the storm itself. Vekar, the god of war, wielded a hammer that could split the very air in two, but Kael's dodges were too swift, his parries too perfect. Sirai, the goddess of fate, tried to unmake him, weaving the cosmic threads to erase his existence from time itself. But Kael's will was an anchor, a fixed point in reality she could not dislodge. He fought not for his own glory or survival. He fought for the memory of his family. He fought for the countless, nameless souls who had perished under the gods' casual cruelty, for those who could no longer fight for themselves. He moved through the storm of divine power, a whirlwind of motion and purpose. He dodged, he rolled, he pierced through curtains of celestial flame, his defiant screams echoing through the maelstrom. And when his lightning-forged sword, strained beyond its limits, finally shattered in his hand, he fought on with his bare fists. When his body, battered and broken, began to fail him, he fought on with his raw, indomitable will. It was then that the gods, weakened and bewildered, finally understood. This was no mere mortal. Through sheer defiance, he had become something else entirely. A concept, a rebellion made flesh, something they could no longer destroy. In the end, Kael knelt on the crumbling floor of the temple. He was wounded, bleeding, but he was alive. Around him, the divine sanctuary disintegrated, its light fading. Oron, her form flickering like a dying candle, looked down at the broken man before her. Her voice was no longer a boom of thunder, but a faint whisper. What are you, mortal?" Kael looked up, his eyes burning with a quiet fire. "I am proof," he said, his voice raspy but clear. "Proof that power does not make you eternal, and cruelty does not make you a god." With his last ounce of strength, he plunged the hilt of his broken sword into the ground at the center of the temple. A silent shockwave of pure will erupted from the impact, spreading across the sky in a ripple of golden light. And with that single final act of defiance, the heavens shattered. The gods fell silent, their power broken, their reign ended. And humanity, for the first time in its history, was free. Years passed. No one ever saw Kael again. The world changed. The skies over Mount Zephyron became calm and clear. Where violent storms once raged, a quiet, peaceful village grew. Children laughed and played in fields that had once been scorched earth, with no fear of the sky above. Legends of Kael's fate were whispered around firesides. Some said he ascended, not as a new god to be worshipped, but as a silent guardian of balance, a cosmic sentinel. Others believed he never left, that he still walks unseen among the storms of the world, a reminder of the day the heavens learned humility. Whatever the truth, one thing remains certain. On the rare occasion that a storm does gather over the mountains, if you look closely, you might see a faint flash of lightning in the distance that holds, for just a moment, the unmistakable shape of a sword. The gods learned to feel fear, because one man refused to bow. This was the legend of the warrior who defied the gods and won. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more forgotten legends. We'll see you next time.